Wow, we're an hour in and we haven't even got to the Cardinals yet, who play a preseason game on Saturday. Now, there's not a whole lot to preview, unfortunately. As of right now, it doesn't appear like most, if any, of the starters are going to play. Obviously, Jeremiah Love, Carson Beck, Chase Besantis, all unfortunately out with injuries. Besantis is out for the year. Jeremiah Love is out until the season opener. We'll see with Carson Beck. He's not expected to play at the beginning of the season anyway, so he has time to work his way back from a rib injury. But what we can talk about and should talk about is Monty Fort and how he's potentially going to cut 3 top 100 draft picks that he's made since being here. So, guys on the cut line right now include BJ Ojulari at edge or outside linebacker, Trey Benson at running back, and Elijah Jones at corner. All 3 of those guys have been top 100 draft picks for Austin Fort over the last 3 seasons. Ojulari was a second round pick. Trey Benson was a second round pick. Elijah Jones was a third round pick. Looks like all of these guys are on the verge of potentially getting cut. Now, do top 100 picks get cut from NFL rosters? Yes, they do. But this is just overall showing us that Austin Fort has continued to not be able to evaluate talent as well as he's needed to, honestly. Now, we can say there is talent on this roster. We know there is. There's some holdouts over from Steve Keim administration, but there's definitely guys that Austin Fort has done well drafting. In my opinion, getting Will Johnson in the second round last year, assuming Johnson plays 8 to 10 years in the league, might be his best draft pick. Walter Nolan, stud when he plays. How often is he going to play? That's a question. Jury's still out on Paris Johnson if that was a good pick. If Austin Fort, when he made that trade, made those draft day trades to get Paris Johnson, he traded with the Texans, who looked like and were projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL the next season. And so trading for that future Texans pick seemed like a good idea at the time. Although obviously Texans drafted one of the best edge rushers in football that would have been nice to have on this Cardinals team, no doubt. Definitely haven't won the value trade there because unfortunately the next season the Texans actually made the playoffs with Stroud, and they have one of the best defenses in the league. And so what the Cardinals hoped was going to become a top 10 pick the next season ultimately did not. They were picking at the back end of the first round with that Texans pick. So at the time seemed like a wise gamble, but ultimately that gamble failed. And so we're stuck with Paris Johnson Jr. instead of having one of the best defensive ends in football. So you can look at Austin Fort's draft history and it doesn't look great. It just doesn't look great. And so with Ojulari, Trey Benson, and Elijah Jones all getting cut, it's just more evidence as to why Austin Fort should not be the general manager at the end of the season. And so with that, I'll get into the top guys in the Cardinals organization that are on the hot seat entering this season. And my number one, by far and away, this offseason, it's Monty Austin Fort. There's no one that even comes close. He's not drafted top level talent as well as he should have, considering how poor the Cardinals have been over the last few seasons. Obviously not making the playoffs since 2021. There is great talent on this roster, but you had to deal with the Kyler Murray situation. You can argue he was dealt an unwinnable hand because he was stuck with that contract and there was no way anyone was going to trade for Murray in that contract. He's been dealt a bad hand with injuries. Now, is that poor draft analysis? Is that not having, the best people knowing and being able to project whether or not guys in the NFL are going to be able to stay healthy, that could be the case. I mean, we're getting to the point where, and I'll get to this later, there need to be some changes made on the medical side of things. But by far and away, Monty Ossenfort is the number one guy on the hot seat for this Arizona Cardinals organization. Except for Michael Bidwell, he's always on the hot seat, but he can't fire himself. So the next guy on the hot seat is Nick Rallis. He's now been in the Cardinals organization for 4 years. He's had some okay defenses. But last year's defense was an objectively horrible failure of a defense, especially with what it could have been. We thought, hey, all the injuries, maybe not on Nick, right? So far during preseason, we haven't really seen the defense stop anyone, and it's not like they've played the best in the NFL. They, and granted, they're not playing all their guys on defense either, but the Raiders look good against the first team defense. And that's the Oakland Raiders who had the number one pick. Guy, they're playing Kirk Cousins, who hasn't played very well. Now it is preseason, so we're reacting to like 2 drives. And there have been some guys that have made some flashes, like Walter Nolan, looked fantastic. But overall, if Nick Rallis doesn't improve the defense immensely from last year, it's likely that this is his last season in Arizona. Maybe there's continuity, maybe there's not. We'll see what happens with Josh Sweat. If Josh Sweat is traded, Nick Rallis doesn't have any guys that can really rush the passer. Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat were the 2 best pass rushers on the team last year. And with both of those guys gone and without a lot of replacements, obviously you hope that Walter Nolan makes up for the production that you're losing with Calais Campbell. But there's no one on this team with the ability to replace Josh Sweat. So Rallis is going to need to have a big improvement on the defensive side of the ball this season for him to stay in Arizona for another year. The next guy on the hot seat, or the next people on the hot seat, are the medical team and the strength and conditioning program. Now, I'm not giving blame to these guys for all of the Cardinals' injuries over the past few seasons. Injuries happen in football. They happen to everyone. But at the same time, when you keep drafting these young players who are supposed to be healthier than the older guys, but you keep drafting these young players and they just keep getting injured, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. But definitely if we have another injury season from hell, even if they're not the problem, it might just be time to change. That's sometimes just how it works in business. If you feel like the medical team and the strength and conditioning staff aren't getting the results that you want from your football team, probably means it's time for a change, whether it's really their fault or not. Number 4, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, he's not going to get fired at the end of the season, but Michael Wilson has another 1,000-yard season and Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't lead the team in receiving yards at the wide receiver position. I do think Trey McBride should lead the team in targets, yards, touchdowns, all of it. But if Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't second in targets, catches, yards, whatever it ends up being, if he's not clearly the number 2 receiver on the roster, he's on the hot seat and it again puts Monty Ossenfort even more on the hot seat because going into next season, Michael Wilson is the number 1. No questions asked. No questions asked. He'll get probably a decent extension at the end of the season if he is the Cardinals' number 1 receiver. And then what does that mean for Marvin Harrison? Yeah, you can try and go in free agency, or you're the biggest letdown of an Ohio State wide receiver drafted in the first round in the last 5 to 8 years that Ohio State's been putting out wide receivers like this. Marvin Harrison is on the hot seat. Now, maybe in the next episode, I'll go through a list of guys in Arizona sports who are most on the hot seat in all of sports right now. But that's it for Cardinals talk outside of Trey McBride, who was the number 13 overall player ranked in the NFL's top 100 list. Trey McBride, one, is the best tight end in football. He might be the best pass catcher in all of football. In fantasy this year, you could easily see McBride go first round. He probably will go first round. 126 catches last year, double-digit touchdowns. This is a guy who's going to be in the conversation of best playmaker in the league, not just best tight end. I think he's got tight end covered. Now we're on to there's bigger fish to fry. And I hope at the end of the season, we say Trey McBride is the best playmaker in football. I think he can do it. And I can't wait to watch him play this season. He's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible teammate. The video that the NFL posted about Trey McBride, he has so much respect from every player in the league. He never shies away from contact, ever. Hopefully he continues to stay healthy. But Trey McBride, number 13th player in the league, should he have been higher? Could he have been higher? Maybe. It's so hard to in football because there's 22 guys on the field at all times, and they all have different roles. It's hard to distinguish, who, and the margin of error is so close. Is McBride the 9th best player overall in football? He could be. He could be. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Do I wish he was top 10? Yeah. For McBride, yeah. But 13, we'll take 13. Hopefully he's even higher next year. But Trey McBride, best tight end in football, on his way to becoming the best playmaker in football.